Good evening, Madam Clerk. Are we ready?
Yes, Your Worship, we are.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is the 35th meeting of the 142nd Council of the City of St. Thomas. And happy to be at least on air with you tonight. I'm still at home quarantining along with Stephanie, but rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. We will start right in with, are there any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, we'll move on to minutes.
I have a motion that the minutes of the meetings held on October the 11th, 2022 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Peters, second by Councillor Reimel.
Questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, all of those in favor. Any opposed? That carried.
Your Worship, Council will now resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. The first committee is Strategic Direction and Development. First item relates to application for temporary removal of part lot control. I have motion that report PD 5322 relating to the application by William R. Hayhoe for temporary removal of part lot control for parts 10 to 14 on Plan 11R 10928 be received for information, and further that the application by Mr. Hayhoe relating to the passing of a bylaw to temporarily remove part lot control for parts 10 to 14 on the plan be approved, and further the council authorized staff to prepare a bylaw pursuant to section 50 sub 7 of the Planning Act, which provides that subsection 50 sub 5 of the Planning Act relating to part lot control does not apply to part 10 to 14 on Plan 11R 10928. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, then all of those in favor. Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, unless there are any further items from the members under Strategic Direction and Development, we'll move on to Community Engagement and Services. At this time, there are no items on the agenda unless there are any items from the members. Seeing none, Your Worship, we'll now move into Infrastructure and Civic Operations. First item relates to cost recovery for municipal services relating to the Southdale Line reconstruction. I have a motion that report ES 6922 relating to the cost recovery for municipal services related to the Southdale Line reconstruction be received for information, and further that a bylaw be prepared to authorize charges for capital costs of $10,040.96 for a sanitary sewer service and $2,325.65 for water service per property associated with the construction of the new sanitary sewer and water main on Southdale Line. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Burgess.
Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor. Are there any opposed? That's carried.
Your Worship, the next item relates to the 2023 St. Thomas Sewer Service Rates, proposed amendment to Bylaw 172/2006. I have a motion that report ES 7122 relating to the 2023 sewer service rates be received for information, and further council direct that a bylaw be prepared to amend Bylaw 172/2006, section 5.5, table 1, to reflect the proposed 2023 sewer service rates. Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters and then Councillor Herbert.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I was wondering if staff may have a comment on the proposed commercial institutional rates, substantive increase on that side.
Please go ahead.
Thanks. So historically in St. Thomas, the commercial rates have been extremely low. What we're doing is we're moving them more towards parity, but at a very, very slow rate. So there's a slight increase now, moving closer to parity, but still a huge difference in them. So the commercial rates are much, much lower than the residential. So as you can see, actually, it's not in this report, but in the sewer rate study, there was a comparison of other cities in terms of the commercial rates, and St. Thomas still fares very low in an overall comparison.
Any follow-up, Councillor Peters? No, Councillor Herbert.
Thank you. Question answered. Thank you.
Okay, great. Other questions or comments on the sewer rate? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Just your worship,
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Peters.
just before, is there a way that we can enhance the publicity of the basement flooding grant program? Like, I know a number of people that have taken advantage of it, and I'm not sure everybody, we've done as good a job as we could have of getting the word out. And I just not looking necessarily for an answer tonight, but perhaps through social media, et cetera, that like this is a really good program for a homeowner that has an issue with water in their basement. So any thoughts on that, Justin?
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. It's always good to do, a republication of programs that we have. It's a good news story. It's very beneficial for the homeowner and for the city. So yeah, absolutely, we'll undertake a new program to advertise.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. I've been hearing the same thing. Oftentimes, whether it's at the doors or any events we've been at, we're hearing from people who are saying, I didn't know you were doing that. And so I'd like us to make a really good effort to try and extra publicize this. I know that we all try in our own one-on-ones with people, but thank you for saying we'll take a look at how to get better word out there. Councillor Herbert, did I see your hand go up? No? Okay, great. Any other comment? Did we vote? All in favor? All right, carried. Next item.
Next item relates to the 2023 water rates, fees, and charges. I have a motion that report ES 7222 relating to the 2023 drinking water rates be received for information, and further that council direct that a bylaw be prepared to amend bylaw 44-2000 Schedule A to reflect the proposed 2023 water rates. Moved by Councillor Baldwin-Sands, seconded by Councillor Burgess.
Questions or comments on the water rates? Councillor Clark.
Thanks. I'd just like to make a comment. It's good to see that we've got that plan that, where we look out so many years. All you have to do is take a look at the news that's happening throughout the states in different states and cities where they continually have problems with their water, and it's because they underfund the whole system. So we have a very safe and secure water system, and it's because we've planned out a full cost recovery program. So, we have small increases every year, and because of that, we have the secure system that we have. So congratulations to staff on planning out again the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Clark. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Next item relates to private property waste collection at 77 Princess Avenue. I have a motion that report ES 7322 relating to private property waste collection at 77 Princess Avenue be received for information. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Wookey.
Questions or comments? Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I know the report recommends that we do not provide the pickup here, but I had the opportunity to visit this site and several others throughout the city. And I personally think that we probably could provide it here, and there is actually enough room. And apparently the residents have even talked to the drivers. I haven't myself, but some of the drivers said that this site could be easily serviced. But having gone around to some of the other sites that are serviced, this one actually would probably be easier than some of them. And one example would be Augusta Court that receives pickup here. So, and I know it talks about the other sites that are in here and we could be setting precedent, but I think there already is precedent throughout the city. And in all honesty, we should probably looking at these other sites and see what we can do to provide that same type of service. When you look at these developments, many of these are elderly that are transitioning in these type of homes, and now we're going to ask them to cart their garbage a little bit even further. But that's personally myself, I'd like to see us include this in there and maybe even do a review on the other sites.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. Well, I reviewed this and then I had a conversation this morning with Nathan Botma, and he pointed out a lot of things to me that I wasn't really aware of that, but this is the contract that was set up with the company that collects the garbage and things. And I understand that. And but I'm thinking, and I had some information sent to me today requesting to take a good look at it. Could we not approach the people we have the contract with and ask them if they would have a problem backing around and picking up the garbage, or is that something that the private citizens there would have to contact the company to see if they would? Because I'm under the impression now that they didn't really have a problem with backing up around that corner because there was room. But I didn't know that information this morning when I talked to Nate, but I'm just curious. I know legally it's up to them to make that decision, correct, Justin, then? But could we not just ask them if they would back up to pick up the garbage around that one corner? Because it's unfortunate, there's only one way in and one way out. And I understand that when it was developed, that's the way it was. But I would really like to see if it's either us contact them to see if they could, or is it something we would push on to? This came from Murray Mugford. Would it be something for Mr. Mugford to contact the company and say, look, would you guys be willing to back up to pick up the garbage? So those are my thoughts. I'd like to at least see if that could be done. So anyway, thank you.
Mr. Lawrence, comments?
Thanks. So the question I understand is you're saying what order would the discussions go? I think the first thing would be, are council interested or not in providing this amendment to the agreement? If councils are interested, then what would happen is staff would ask GFL if they'd be willing to do this, and absolutely we could ask if council's interested. Legally, I think GFL could say, no, we won't pick up those two. It might be difficult for us to force them, but we can definitely ask. But the first step in that process, remember, is council to authorize that.
Councillor Herbert, did you have a follow-up?
Yes. So if it's up to council to ask, and I would put a motion on the floor to ask the company if they would mind backing up to pick up the garbage. Not that we have any legal right to do it, but I would, if you were looking for council direction, I would make that motion that we ask.
Okay.
I'll
Go to
second
Councillor
that.
Pete. Okay.
Oh, okay. I heard Councillor Kohler just comment that he would second the motion. I was going to say I would second the motion as well too, that
Okay.
staff be directed, but I'm supportive.
Okay, well, we have a motion moved and seconded. Let's finish our discussion then. Councillor Peters, did I see your hand? And I see Councillor Wookie's hand.
No, I was going to comment, but when Councillor Herbert put that motion on the floor, I'm agreeable with that direction.
Councillor Wookie?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm very open to taking a look at the policy, but governance by exception is poor governance. We get ourselves in trouble when we make exceptions to policies. I'd be pleased to look at the policy. But it kind of drives me crazy when we do exceptions. I think we undermine ourselves. I think we undermine staff, and it sets a bad precedent, not only for this topic, but for other topics when we're prepared to deviate from policy. But like I said, I'd be pleased to speak with my colleagues about the policy at hand. Thank you.
If I can go to you, Madam Clerk, could you tell me what you believe the motion is?
Your Worship, at this time, the motion is that the report be received for information, moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Wookie. Once that is passed, if a member wishes to have another motion put forward, I'd be happy to take that.
Okay, So we're on the original motion of receiving the report. Further discussion. Counselor Clark.
Everyone that moved into these condos was aware of what the arrangements were when they moved in. Am I correct? There's been no change from what they signed on for?
Mr. Lawrence, I guess do you
Yeah.
have the answer to that question?
There's an agreement that council approved that's between the condo corporation and the city. So whether the condo corporation communicated that specifically to every owner and new owner, I don't know. But certainly like there is an agreement that's signed between the parties.
So I would assume as a follow-up, if I was buying a place, I would want to know what was in the condo agreement. So I'm just puzzled at the change being requested now. And I'm like, I guess my comment would be that I'm like Councillor Wookie, that we have a bylaw in place. It was approved, and if we want to look at it in the future going forward, then so be it. I'd be open to that.
Okay, Counselor Kohler and then Counselor Herbert.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just to Councillor Wilkie's point and Councillor Clark's point, I totally agree with them, but that's what I mentioned earlier, that there's already these exceptions that are out there. And I think we should actually review the other ones that are mentioned in this report, number 10, because I think we should clean it up, and then further down the road, maybe look at these developments and ensure that there's ability for this type of pickup in the future, or make it quite clear that if it isn't, that it wouldn't be supported. But if it wasn't already existing in the rest of the city, I probably wouldn't be pushing this, but there already are exceptions.
Counselor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. I guess maybe I should make myself clear here. I'm not asking for any policy change, or, I mean, it is what it is. They have to walk and take their garbage down. I don't have a problem with that. You had suggested that before you'd asked the contract people who pick up the garbage. That's all I was asking for, some direction. Either it comes from us to ask that question, or do we have the private people who own the houses to ask that question? I just think when the taxpayers have some problems, you can see how that might be a problem for one of the elderly persons in that corner to carry their garbage down. But that's all. I wasn't asking. I mean, I agree with the policy. We pass it. That's what it is. I'm not asking to change policy. It was just a simple thing. Direction, could we contact them and see if they would? If they say no, fine, end of discussion. Or do we ask the people who live there to contact the people and see if they'll back in? That was my only intent on putting that motion on the floor. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, well, we're back to the original report. We're going to vote on the original report. Counselor Clark, did I see your hand up?
Yes, Your Honor. Based on what Councillor Kohler has commented on, could we not defer this until we had a chance to look at the bigger picture? These people have been putting the garbage out where they've had to for now, and if it was delayed for a few more weeks while we took a look at what's actually going on in the city, instead of doing this one-off and then having another one back here the next time there's a condo that opens, that might be a compromise.
Mr. Lawrence, how soon could you have something back to us on the total picture rather than 77 Princess?
I appreciate the questions. I think, however, though, if we looked at the bylaw, we would likely come up with these exact requirements. And so what it says is that any new condos would have to meet these, 1 to 6, those parts there. That's what you have to meet. If you want to make a condo that gets pickup, it has to be built like that. And we would say that anything that's not built like that shouldn't have pickup. So it's already written. The policy's written. It's council bylaw. So I'm not sure what a new study or review by council would determine.
Okay, Councillor Herbert, did I see your hand?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Reimel.
Thanks. I just wanted to comment that when this development was discussed, the parking was clearly discussed at that time. These developers not new, and the information was very clear as to if you wanted garbage pickup door to door, you had to construct your development in a certain way. And he chose not to do that. And he chose to put the pads on there, which are, according to the report, aren't even the size they should be. So this is, it seems to be falling to the city to have to fix this issue, but it's really the developer. Like he chose not to develop the site in a way, in the manner that was addressed. So I don't think the city should be making an exception and compromising the service.
I'll go to Councillor Peters, then Councillor Wookie.
If we're, I'll look forward to the report, but what I'm not clear, and that's what I thought where we were going with Councillor Herbert's motion and Councillor Kohler, that we were going, if that motion were to pass, we would be instructing staff to go and find out from GFL whether a truck can go down that street or not. Because if Justin comes back and GFL says, yes, our truck can go down that street, then I'm prepared to consider granting this and overriding the bylaw. But if the truck can't go down the street, then it's a moot point. So that's why I was kind of hoping we would pass this, receive it as information, and then let's deal with the motion that's been that will be moved and seconded, and find out whether this is even doable.
Councillor Wookie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to, I think I know the answer, but I'd like to know from staff. The places, it looks like this bylaw is from 2010. So I'm going to guess, because I wasn't around here in 2010, that the places where we do pick it up, it got grandfathered because they were picking up before 2010. Then the bylaw was passed and everything subsequently would not be done. Is that the case, or is that not the case? Or these other ones were one-offs by council with the existing policy as well? Thank you.
Mr. Lawrence.
Well, I wasn't here in 2010 either, but that's my understanding, is that post 2010, if you met the standards, you could enter an agreement with the city. If you didn't meet the standards like this one, you couldn't get pickup. Pre 2010, as you can see in the report, they were allowed to get pickup.
Councillor Kohler, you were a younger man, but 2010?
Exactly. Just some clarification on that too. Some of these condos that are currently being serviced this way now actually had private agreements where the truck was a whole different truck, wasn't even the same provider from the city, and they've been now brought in and they're getting curbside pickup. So some of them, it wasn't just like that. So some of these, that's why I'm saying there's already precedent out there. So just the clarification on that.
Okay. Further discussion on the report? Seeing none, then all in favor of the report, of accepting the report? That is carried.
Do you want the motion under new business in this committee, or can I do it now?
You do it in this committee? Yes?
Okay, I would.
You can try and let's see. What
Okay, sure.
Your worship, from what I understand, Councillor Herbert was the mover and Councillor Kohler seconder. I believe the motion is that staff be directed to inquire about individual private waste collection at 77 Princess Ave by the city's contractor.
Does that sound right, the motion? Looking for nods from Councillor Kohler and Councillor Herbert? Yeah, okay. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? I'm going to do this one again because I'm a long way away tonight, folks. All those in favor? I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is carried.
Sorry, your worship, were you in favor?
Yes, I was. I'm sorry, you can't see my own hand. I'll wave more.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have our staff ask GFL, can they do, is this a hardship for them or in addition to our contract? If it comes back with either of those, it'll come back to this group to decide. Is that okay, Mr. Lawrence?
I'm not 100% clear on what to ask them. Like we can ask them, like, can the truck back up in a lane? Yes, it can. The question is more, is it appropriate or is it safe to do so? And their answer to that will be no. And any of us can answer that. No, a truck shouldn't back up around a corner in a lane in a tight condo. So I'm not, sorry, but I'm not 100% clear what to do with the request.
Maybe the motion should be amended that the private agreement council amend the private property collection agreement so it would allow the truck to go on there, because at the one corner, it looks like there's definitely enough room for that truck to make the turn. I haven't seen it done, but apparently the residents have talked to drivers and they've done it. But if this is the case, then how do we stop it in the other areas where they're currently doing it, which I don't want to see, but so maybe the amendment just needs to be to pass the amendment to the private collection agreement so that they are allowed to go on there and then see how they'll end up servicing it.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence, I had a question and I don't want to add a third thought to this, but is there a reason these condos can't simply put their trash out to the curb like the rest of the houses along Princess?
That would work. Yeah, that would be the safest of the configurations. If you look at the sketch, that would realistically get, half of them really good service, and the other half, like the ones we're talking about down and around the corner, they'd still have to bring their garbage out, 25, 30 meters, I guess.
Okay, well, we have plenty of houses in this community with 25-meter laneways, so I'm just wondering if that's the solution to this. GFL is going down the street. If the residents were to put their garbage out to the curb just like everybody else on Princess, would GFL pick it up, or would they be asking more for us, or a rewording of the contract or something like that? Is that a question we should ask?
If I can help with this, the key point here is that council, I think, first needs to decide if you want to change the agreement or not. If you are in support of changing the agreement, then the second step, I think, is to ask GFL if they'd be willing to do that. I think we need to do that. I understand you've already voted on something, but I'm not sure how to.
Well, we've accepted this report and that's fine. Then a second motion came out and asked about us talking to GFL. I'm certain that's what the way Councillor Herbert put it was for us to ask GFL, could they do something, whether it's back up or pick up or whatever it might be. Right. So I'm not sure we're too far beyond what you just asked. Council has certainly been pretty clear that when we build condos, it's the condo builder's responsibility to come up with a way to remove garbage. Since 2010, that's been the case. And so we accepted the report that says that. Right? And now we're at the point where, okay, but for this one, what's the solution? And I just offered one and Councillor Herbert has offered one. So I don't, your thoughts on that, Mr. Lawrence?
Well, you've given me some direction here. We can speak to GFL and report back to you on what's possible.
Okay. All right. Is council okay with that direction to Mr. Lawrence to go find out what the collector thinks is possible, and we may have a solution for the site, or we may not have a solution for the site after GFL puts their words in. Councillor Wookie?
Thank you, Your Worship. So if I've been on a bus in Italy that's had 1 inch on both sides of the bus going down a street, okay, between 500-year-old buildings, they can do it, certainly. Like that, I've been on the bus, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, So GFL will say they can do it. Now, if we say yes to this and they back up a truck and they run over somebody's car or hurt somebody, this may not be a question that anybody on staff can answer, but are we going to be the people who get sued? Like, if we say yes to this, are we now saying we're accepting legal responsibility if something goes wrong, or is that totally on GFL? If they say yes, obviously I know we can all be named in every single lawsuit that happens. But in terms of legally, where does this put us? I think my subjective opinion is when we say yes to this, we're putting ourselves in a very bad position when safety says we shouldn't do it.
Well,
Thank
then
you.
I would ask Mr. Lawrence to come back and with that question answered in what he asked GFL, and this council can make the decision based on liability then. Further questions or comments, Councillor Clark?
Would the report also indicate what the additional costs would be or
If
cost
there was one,
savings?
yeah,
If
sure.
there was one, or, thank you.
Great.
Sure, no problem. No problem. Yeah.
Okay, you understand where we're headed, Mr. Lawrence?
Mostly, thanks. But I got enough to get back here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure there's anything to vote on here, so we'll move on to the next.
Your worship, unless there are any further items from the members under this committee, I believe Councillor Clark has an item.
Sorry, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Worship. I had a couple complaints about transit and, but I talked to Mr. Lawrence today and he hasn't received any complaints about transit. So I guess my comment would be, and when I spoke to the person, they hadn't registered anything. They said they had kind of given up. So I guess my reminder to the public was if they are after better service or if there's problems, we can't do anything about it unless we know about it. And so rather than giving up on customer service requests, I would encourage people to continue to put those in so that we can be more active and try and pinpoint whether there's a bottleneck in say a labor shortage because of COVID or whether there's extra demand and we need to add maybe another bus. That we've already added one in September. So unless we know what the real problem is, we can't make the changes that are needed. So it's just a reminder to folks to please keep making use of customer service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'm going to add to that too, because I've had some also. And many people are calling into Voigo with their issues. Please use our customer services if you cannot get a hold of the customer service at the transit provider, so that we're also getting a record of it too. Councillor Peters, I saw your hand there before.
Well, thanks, Worship. And just to speak to this one as well, because a lot of these do appear on social media. And my common response to when I comment on a lot of these is, please forward your concerns to customer service at stthomas.ca. And so I think those of us that are on social media, I think we need to continue to reinforce that is the go-to place. I keep telling people regularly the success rate of having things resolved. It doesn't resolve everything, but it's a good way to have a paper trail, so to speak, because you get that tracking number and that way you can follow where it's going. But just to build on Councillor Clark's comments, when will the next review of the transit system take place? I know we've made a number of changes, and I just wondered when staff anticipates we're going to sit down and take a debrief of how 2022 went and what changes, if any, we need to make looking ahead into 2023. Thank you.
Mr. Lawrence, you take first stab at that.
Thanks. Yeah. So this council, if you'll recall, heard a report in July of this year, and you looked at the supply and demand of on-demand transit, and you actually added a bus. So you added a resource. You saw a need and you added the resource, which in theory will eventually show returns. That bus was just started to being added in mid-September, and they're trying to get the schedule in place. They've had some trouble with COVID, a lot of drivers off. So what I would suggest is 6 months at least post say October 1st would be a good time to analyze if that addition by council was positive.
Okay, great. Further comment? Sorry, Councillor Herbert, was that a yes? No? Okay. All right then. Next item.
Seeing no further
Your
items,
worship, I have another item of new business.
Oh, please
for the
go ahead.
committee. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an item I've raised in the past, and it's speed on Scott Street. I know we had a report in front of us that was going to be looking at a roundabout for the intersection of St. Catharines, Keynes, and Scott. That didn't happen, but I'm still not convinced that a roundabout at that intersection is going to deal with the speed that takes place predominantly west of Mondamon Street. I'm not sure what the police reports have shown, but you know, there have been, I know, a few accidents at Hiawatha and Scott, at Scott and East Street. And I'm just curious, would like to hear back again, if there's any mitigation measures that we could implement, such as a four-way stop at Hiawatha and Scott. East Street may be a little too far away, but even the consideration of that as well. Have that for a future agenda, please. Thanks, Your Worship.
Okay, so you want that to go on a future agenda, or you, Mr.
Well, I
Lawrence?
would just ask staff perhaps if they could report back and maybe consult with the police as to what sort of, I know that the police have been conducting, the police service is very good at doing their speed zones, and I have seen them with the little speed, your speed is sign up on Scott Street, but we could have something come back. Thanks.
Okay, and am I incorrect that we're also looking at going both two-way direction on Scott and Curtis, or sorry, Scott and changing the road from a one-way to a two-way? Is that Councillor Peters?
That's certainly not the intent of my raising this item right now. I don't know whether staff is even, you know, how much that's been considered, but I'm not looking, that wasn't on my agenda tonight.
Okay, well, great. On the one you brought forward, we'll also ask the police to take a continuous look at Scott Street. I just received a message from the chief as I sit here saying he will do so. So let's start there, and we'll ask for staff to come back. Further questions or comments on this committee? Seeing none.
Your worship, moving to corporate governance and administration. First item relates to Integris Inc. 2022 auditor appointment. We have the request on pages 18 to 19 of the agenda. And I understand Mr. Hogan is here as well, if the members would allow him to say a few words.
Certainly works for me, Mr. Hogan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes.
Great. So I was at Council last month with the resolutions for our annual general meeting, and there was one item that was still outstanding that we're working on, and that was for a recommendation of the auditors for this year. So therefore, the management team, the audit committee, and the board are recommending to our shareholders that MNP be appointed as the external auditors for Integris for this upcoming fiscal year.
So, Mr. Hogan, do you need a motion to that effect, or is that what you're bringing forward to us for us to vote on?
That's what I'm bringing forward. Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk,
I have a motion that council adopt the following Integris Inc. shareholder resolution, that MNP be appointed as the external auditors for Integris Inc. for the 2022 or the 2023? 2022 fiscal year.
Yes. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Wookie, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Good evening, everybody.
Your worship, the next item for this committee is the proposed redistribution of federal electoral districts, commission presentation and written submission. I have motion that report ADM 2922 relating to the commission presentation and written submission be received for information. And further, the council endorsed that Mayor Joe Preston make a presentation at the Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission for the province of Ontario regarding the impact of the proposed redistribution on residents of St. Thomas and Elgin County at the public hearing being held on October 28th, 2022 in London. And further, that council approve the written submission included in the report and direct staff to email the submission to the commission ahead of the October 29th, 2022 deadline. I moved by Councillor Rymel, seconded by Councillor Burgess.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried.
Your worship, nothing further on the agenda unless there are any items from the members. Your worship, and if you wouldn't mind, I just have a couple of items, sorry, a couple of points to make about the 2022 municipal election.
That's what I thought you would do next.
Thank you, Your Worship. So first off, just shortly after 4 o'clock this afternoon, our total elector count was 3,501. That's approximately 11% of our total electors. And that number of electors has been fluctuating. It has gone down slightly since we have had returns from people having moved away, et cetera. The number that have voted by internet is 3249 and by telephone 252. And we recently had a voting kiosk at the Elgin Center, 126 voters between the hours of 12 and 4. If I could just mention to our general electorate, if you have not received your voter information letter by now, it means your name is not on the voters list, or it had been mailed to a previous address and was returned to the clerk's office as having moved. So you can either come to the clerk's office at City Hall or to a mobile voter help center to add your name to the list. If you go to a mobile voter help center, you can also vote while you're there. We'll print the letter right at the space. And just as a reminder, tomorrow we will be at the St. Thomas Senior Center from 12 till 4, Thursday at Locke School from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday again at the Elgin Center from 12 till 4, and then finally on Monday, voting day at the St. Thomas Public Library from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And just as information for the members, I know we had sent out an email earlier that on election night, we will have the building open and we will just show the results on the screen behind me at some point after 10 past 8. We need to allow anyone that's in the voting place an opportunity to vote, after which time we'll have the results for the St. Thomas area. We will not have the results for the school board from the remainder of the municipalities until they forward those in. Some people may still be doing paper ballots and counting by hand, so that may take a bit of time. Thank you, Your Worship.
Will you take questions? Is there anyone with questions for the clerk? Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I know we talked a little bit about this before when we were hearing how many people were planning on attending for election day to vote. So I'm just wondering, because this is the last council meeting before election day, if there is some sort of contingency plan being discussed right now, if all of a sudden more people don't take advantage of the online and telephone before now on Monday.
Madam Clerk?
Your Worship, so we have more iPads that we can make available, and we obviously can send more staff over after the end of day here after 4:30 if we see that there is going to be a large number of people that are willing or interested in voting after 4:30.
Okay. Further questions, Councillor Clark?
You just wondered how we would gauge that based on the percentage of people knowing that 39% of the population voted last time, and what would you kind of guesstimate as to how you would proceed?
Madam Clerk?
Your worship, so we already have the extra iPads. We have not had to use them at the Elgin Center. We would have them available. And in fact, we had a nice offer from our Director of Engineering who advised that all city vehicles would be removed from the back parking lot here to allow for more space should we have more people interested in voting at the library.
I was thinking more about staff, just so that they would be forewarned and kind of not have to try and make last minute plans.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Clark. They would just call over and we would just have them walk over. So at this time, we are expecting 3 throughout the day or more if needed. So they would just call over and say, we need some help.
Councillor Herbert?
Thank you, Worship. I'm just curious on this, Marie. How long, if I walk in the front door of the library, how long would I be there before I would go?
Thank you. That's a good question. I can judge that now, having worked last Saturday at the mall. If you have your voter information letter and there is nobody at the kiosks, you would simply walk in and start voting. If you need to make a change, then you would need to go to our desk where you would be provided with an application form. It takes a couple of minutes to fill out. It takes a couple more minutes for the election official to type the information in and to print off a voter information letter. So I would say if you were adding or correcting something that needed to be corrected, you may have 5 minutes that it would take in total. And then depending on whether you have taken notes and how quickly you want to vote, it could take anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple of minutes on the iPads.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. It's so far anecdotally been pretty smooth. So let's see if the end of the election rush makes a difference at the library. Next item.
Seeing no further items under corporate governance and administration, your worship, council will now reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole as recorded in the minutes of this date be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Reimel, seconded by Councillor Baldwin-Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing that, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next, we move into reports of committees. One report this evening relating to a heritage alteration permit for the property at 389 to 393 Talbot Street. I have a motion that report MHC 1522 relating to the heritage alteration permit for the property at 389 to 393 Talbot Street be received for information. And further, the council issue a heritage alteration permit for the property at 389 to 393 Talbot Street relating to application HAP 1222 and the amended notated drawing submitted October 1st, 2022, subject to the following. Number 1, reduce brick height below the main floor windows to 12 to 18 inches in height as shown on note A. Number 2, replace brick beside the entrance of 387 Talbot Street with a dark panel to match the double doors entrance for 389 to 393 Talbot Street as shown on note B. Number 3, the 2 main floor end units have identical window spacing and sizing as shown on note C. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Burgess.
Questions or comments? Councillor Peters.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. The facade of this building has been through a few different iterations of what it was going to look like. But I guess where I'm, and I don't know if Kevin McClure is on the line, but I'm just sort of, it's an issue of why is this not going to the Heritage Committee first, letting the Heritage Committee review this, and then having the Heritage Committee say or yay and make a recommendation. To me, if we pass this motion this evening, we're overriding, we don't know what the Heritage Committee thinks of this. I to admit I was not at the last meeting, but I do not believe that this was discussed. And just,
Well, I've
No,
got Mr.
I see Lou's on there.
I've got Mr. Pompilli. Let's get his thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Peters. These recommendations were discussed at the last Heritage Committee. To the best of my knowledge, I attended
Thanks. I
portions of the meeting.
misread this.
Yeah, not a problem. No, the specific details, as the clerk had outlined, were the specific recommendations of the committee members.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pompilli. Councillor Peters, you're okay with that piece?
Yes, thank you.
Great. All right. Further questions or comments then on the report? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Lou. Oh, Lou disappeared. But the recommendations were three things. What happens if the developer doesn't agree with them? Is it something that is a game changer or?
I'm waiting for
Yes,
Mr.
through you.
Pompilli to come
No
back.
problem. I
Please go ahead.
apologize. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, no, the owner, the developer was at the meeting, and all these recommendations were discussed in their presence, and they were in agreement with them.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Further discussion or comment? Then on the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your worship, we now move into petitions and communications. The first item is a request for proclamation, flag raising and jumbo lighting. I have a motion that Council of the City of St. Thomas proclaim April 2nd, 2023 as World Autism Awareness and Neurodivergent Awareness and Acceptance Day in the City of St. Thomas. And further, that Bailey's flag be flown at City Hall from March 30th, 2023 to April 9th, 2023. And further, that the Jumbo Monument be lit in blue for the week of April 2nd to 9th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Rymel.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried.
The next item is a communication from Don Sutton of 3 Bell Ave regarding noise levels at events in Pinafore Park.
I guess I'll ask, can this go to special events? I know it was at a discussion at special events, and this should probably go there first and perhaps come back to council with recommendations for the council from Special Events Committee. Councillor Clark, are you chair that committee, and I just went and just told you what you're going to do. I apologize. Are you okay?
No, I think that's a natural fit for it because we do approve those things and then we can take a look at what the complaints were and whether or not the complaints were outside what the event had agreed to with us. So I think that's probably the first step for it.
Great. Okay, next item.
Your worship, we now move, unless there are any items from the members, we now move into unfinished business of council. And your worship, seeing no items from the members, now new business.
If I can cover a topic, I wanted to thank Councillor Herbert and Councillor Clark for filling in for me today at a couple of proclamations and flag raisings. It's one of the busiest days for proclamations and flag raisings we've had. I want to thank council for all who were there, and certainly those two councillors for filling in for me when I could not be there in person.
Thank you, your worship. If there's nothing further, we'll move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have motion by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands, that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole, and read a second time.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 17th day of October, 2022.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Next bylaw.
Second bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Sunset Towers Corporation. This relates to a 12-story residential building containing 106 units for condominium conversion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Next bylaw.
Third bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 172, 2006, being a bylaw for imposing a sewage service rate in the city of St. Thomas. This is relating to the 2023 sewage service rates.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Next bylaw.
Fourth bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 44-2000, being a bylaw to provide for the regulation of water supply in the city. This relates to the 2023 water rates.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Next bylaw.
Fifth bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the city and Dr. Anthony Zepwe. This relates to health recruitment partnership funding of $33,000.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Next.
Sixth and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize charges for capital costs associated with the construction of a sanitary sewer private drain connections and water service connections to property line to service certain properties on Southdale Line.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Your worship, I rise and report the successful passing of 6 bylaws.
Very good.
Your worship, I have a motion by Councillor Herbert, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands, that the report of council and committee of the whole on the 6 bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time, engrossed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried.
One public notice this evening, your worship. Notice is hereby provided that administration intends to introduce a report at the November 7th, 2022 council meeting requesting approval of an unbudgeted capital expenditure relating to the purchase of a fire pumper truck. No notices of motion this evening, your worship. At this time, I have a motion for adjournment. And then your worship, if I would just like to mention that following this meeting, there will be a court of revision meeting where we have Councillor Wookie and Councillor Peters and Deputy Mayor Marks in attendance as the members, just for the public's information.
Okay, great. Anything else for the good of council tonight? We'll move to adjournment then.
I just need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Baldwin Sands, seconded by Councillor Burgess.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you all.